let me say, take your seats, folks. Hello, John. Yes. Okay, folks, let's declare the meeting open at 7:33. How many new first timers have we got tonight? Who's here for the first time? One? One? Only one. Hey. Welcome. Welcome. Okay. Have we got a quorum? We have indeed, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many non-members are sitting in the audience? How many unfinancial members are sitting in the audience? 1, 2, 3, thank you, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, I'm going to declare a quorum with something like 48 people present, of which 3 are non-financial. We have a quorum. So, having got a quorum, I do ask, if you've read the agenda that was sent out a fortnight ago, if anybody has a declared conflict of interest, if we do have a vote of interest that you conflict with, you will abstain from the voting. The first thing we've got to do is approve of our minutes of 14/07/25, and that's the July meeting, way back. And as those minutes to the best of my knowledge have not been distributed, I think it's necessary that I read the majority of them so that we can vote on them to accept the minutes. That meeting of July did have a quorum, yep, and a notice of recording, and again I say we are recording the meeting tonight also. There were no declarations of conflict of interest, and the minutes of the June meeting were accepted and carried. Financial report was delivered by Anna van den Broek, and that she presented the 2025 financial summary. No questions were asked. That's when we spoke about the intention to increase the family membership fees. General membership was informed of a motion will be proposed at the AGM. Well, as you know, that motion then failed. The AGM, the nomination process was outlined. All written committee nominations must be received by the 28th of July. Forms are available. The BSSA representatives, at that stage we announced the new appointments to SAVIAC, of which Peter Mew is here as well, and SAVIAC representative as well was Simon Gerbelik. SAAA at that stage was Tricia Blanks, and the API DRG Anna van den Broek. Intention to purchase an AED, the defibrillator. That was announced that there would be a motion at the AGM. We also spoke that night in July on the Adelaide Hills Council proposed new bylaws, of which some members took part in the contribution of thoughts on that one. We also were then speaking about our member insurance. Our guest speaker was Josh D'Ambrosio, one of our VDOs, and he spoke about integrated pest management. Other business, a thank you to the Constitution Subcommittee, the Royal Adelaide Show entries, and then we had a ad-lib presentation by Aphrodite on the member jungle. The raffle was drawn. So that was our July meeting. Somebody like to move that those minutes be received? Thank you. Anyone second it? Thank you. All in favour? Good. Thank you. At this stage, I would like to table the minutes of our AGM, purely and simply on the basis that we need them to be tabled, and so moved and seconded that they be tabled so the committee can act on them, and then they will be confirmed at the next AGM. But so if somebody would like to move that the minutes which I have here of our AGM be tabled, it will then allow the committee, the new committee, to act on them. Thank you, Jim. Somebody like to second that act? Thank you, Luke. So having moved and seconded those minutes, everybody in favour? Thank you. The committee, it just gives the right to the committee to act on them in the meantime. Simon, do you have a finance report? Okay.
This one's working. All right. So yeah, with the finance report, that hasn't been done because of all the other stuff going on, and the insurance I've paid. I think I sent out an email. I think it was I've paid the first lot of payments to the insurer. I still haven't heard back from them yet, and there's the last. I think it's about $2,000 has come in. For the last, I think it makes it around 130 people now that have paid for the insurance, and so I have to hopefully by Wednesday get in contact and get a response back from LCIS to work out what is the final amount of insurance money that they want paid to them, and then come back with a list.
All right. Thank you. Now, Peter, do you want to have time now? Peter would like to speak to us in regards to Saviac for a period of a few minutes, and then we'll resume to our agenda. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Bob. Most of you would know that Simon and I sit on Saviac. Saviac is an advisory body to PIRSA on the management or the transition to management of Varroa coming into South Australia. We are at a crossroad with some decisions that need to be made this week, and it's not often that we need to seek your advice, but in this case we need your advice and direction on which way we go. The issue that we're going to discuss briefly stems from the incursion that occurred in the Riverland back in August, late August, early September. That mite incursion has not been detected since. Some of you probably know that the hives that had the mite were shipped back out of South Australia. They went to New South Wales. By a miracle, that incursion has not been detected yet. Could be 2 to 3 months before it pops up. But because of the confidentiality that we have to work within on Saviac, I don't want to go into too much detail. What that means though, and we can easily talk about this, is that the Varroa mite has not been declared endemic in South Australia. And that'd be correct. So that's correct. Given that it's not been declared endemic, it's by law illegal to import products, queens, beekeeping equipment, and that is driven by the Livestock Act, which still stands at this point in time, and also the Biosecurity Act. We were confronted with a paper, which I'm not going to go into any detail on, at our last Saviac meeting on Friday of last week, where we were asked to advise on the lowering of the risk assessment to bring in queens into South Australia. Now, the detail of that paper made me shudder.
That was from Queensland and Victoria.
Yeah.
And New South Wales as well?
No, you can't bring stuff in from New South Wales because it's the mite is endemic right through New South Wales. The mite infestation in Victoria and Queensland is on the move. What they wanted us to advise them on was, do we agree to lower the risk assessment on bringing in queens from Queensland and Victoria? Now, the process that they proposed is not workable. But the issue that I think that we really need advice on is, given that it's not endemic, there is a possibility that this mite incursion was stopped. It could be that South Australia is mite free. Now, it's a big could. Do we want, as a beekeeping industry, to allow the importation of queens with escorts into South Australia from the Varroa areas of Victoria and Queensland? That's the question. At the moment, in the transition to management plan, which is open to everybody, the risk assessment on queen importation is high. In other words, you don't do it. Now, I've sought advice from Randy Oliver in California. He's come back to me and said, you would be mad to do this, because the risk, lowering the risk only creates an incursion again. And what they propose wouldn't work. But we're not going to go into that detail. What I need to know from you guys,
no we get an infestation.
Well, then it's a breach of the Biosecurity and the Livestock Act.
So people come and tell us about the green meat, is that what it's saying?
Well, the situation is if you want to import queens, there's a permit system. It's 10 pages long, and the queen breeders don't want to be bothered with South Australia. It's too hard. They've made that very clear. As an industry and the commercial side of the equation, I had a discussion with one of their members today, and I'll give you an example of where things are going pear-shaped. They brought into Jubilee in the Riverland over 600 hives that came from a Queensland beekeeper. Simon and I are trying to establish who owns those bees, and at the moment they won't tell us because I think we've got them. But there was another 200 hives from Western Australia that came in, and they've since been sold to South Australian beekeepers. Today I found out that some of those hives are having to be burnt because of American foul brood. Now, Western Australian beekeepers have a very good habit of masking AFB with terramycin. You don't see it. It's there. So it's another risk that failed in the process of bringing them in on the entry permit. That's by the by. The commercial beekeepers have told me today that they don't want to see queens come in to South Australia. We want to keep Varroa out. One of the objectives of SAVIAC was made very clear at the beginning, is to keep the spread to a minimum. In other words, reduce the spread of the Varroa and keep it out for as long as possible. What's been proposed is the reverse of that. And Simon and I stood our ground last week with the commercial beekeepers and said, no. We've got to go back again this week and explain why we said no. Now, I've got a lot of science behind this, and that's not hard. That's why I went to Oliver in America and asked him what he thought. And he's given me a heads up on the direction we should take. Our view is to continue to say no, because if we can keep it out as long as possible, we preserve food security in South Australia and also the food security of the Adelaide Basin. Recreational beekeepers are the backbone of the pollination side of things of the Adelaide Basin. All those mums and dads with their fruit trees and veggie gardens rely on your bees to produce food. Now, if we allow Varroa in, then what's going to happen to that? 65% of the food that's produced, vegetable and fruit crops, are pollinated by bees, honeybees. 95% of feral colonies are suspected to disappear with Varroa. Probably 80% of recreational beekeepers are going to suffer the same fate, and 50% commercial beekeepers, as in happening in New South Wales right now, are disappearing. Now, this thing is really serious stuff. So it's not a call to arms, it's a call to the pen. If you can give us some direction tonight that we don't want to see it come in at all costs, and we stand our ground and say no as an association, as recreational beekeepers, well, then we'll put that case forward with a lot of push and a lot of strength. But what we're going to ask you to do is you write to your local member of Parliament and tell them why we don't want this to happen. Because the minister only sees what one side of the equation is saying. It's time we stood up for our own industry and said enough's enough.
Yeah, Peter, so I'd basically say if individual beekeepers don't start getting onto the radio and newspapers and their politicians, because all we can do is put forward the position of we don't want queens to come in yet, but there's huge pressure, just the same as the almond industry put on pressure from commercial beekeepers putting on pressure, saying that they desperately need queens. All that we do in SAVIAC is put an opinion to PIRSA and the minister, and they can just ignore that opinion and just go with the commercial thing. And so it's quite possible in a couple of weeks, unless there's a lot of media pressure, there could be queens coming in from Queensland and Varroa, from
Victoria.
Victoria, and Queensland, there could be Queens coming in with PIRSA permits by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, by the watering down of that standard, which is what we don't want to do.
Sorry, just this was going to be half answer, half question, but I think you've just clarified some of it. And without going into a full-blown education on risk assessments, you're saying that they're asking you to go back and lower the level of the risk assessment.
That's it. Yep.
So my understanding and my teaching of risk assessment is there's two factors: consequence of the event and the likelihood. You've just outlined the consequence. That's devastating. So that's the highest end of the table.
Mm-hmm.
What's the likelihood if you import thousands of bees and their attendance of Varroa coming in?
Okay. What happens when you get a cage of bees with a queen in it? What's in it?
Attendance.
Escorts?
Yep.
Nurse bees?
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, that's fine. No.
So
Those bees, if they come from a Varroa infected area, are going to have what on them?
Varroa.
Mites.
So the likelihood is high.
Yes.
And the consequence is high.
It's right up there. It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. You can't go back and lower it. And your answer to go back is, we've looked at the matrix. The matrix is very high. We want to increase it from high to very high,
Exactly.
and not lower it.
Exactly.
Because we've put the matrix through, and the matrix says very high, not lowering it.
That's what we want to stand our ground on.
That's my feedback.
That's what we're looking for.
That's what I want to ask you. In South Australia, we produce the queen enough for all South Australia, or not enough for all South Australia, and we need to order some queen from the other state? Because if we have enough queen for South Australia beekeeper, why we need some queen from another state? That's the things.
That's an easy answer to that.
If we have enough here, we can keep like that. And keep
Most.
they keep the queen and we keep the queen here.
There's
Same
a good question and an easy answer. The easy answer is commercial beekeepers are not queen breeders. All you guys can rear your own queens. I rear my own queens. And I'm rearing some tomorrow. I'm grafting tomorrow. I have to rear about 120 new queens. I've planned that in my own time. If I've got spares, I'll hand them around, because the stuff I've got's got very high hygienic behaviour traits, greater than 95% in 2 hours. But it's not guaranteed to be Varroa sensitive hygienic behaviour. Commercial beekeepers buy in hundreds, 200, 400, 600 queens at a time, because they don't have the gear. There's only 1 or 2 operators and they're running 1,200 hives. They're not going to cope with Varroa. And what was proposed is not workable, in the sense that you can't go and shove these bees through their process, and I'm not allowed to tell you what that is, but I can tell you that it's horrific. It won't work. They'll just stick those queen cages straight in hives and away they go. So that's spreading, as you point out correctly, the risk goes through the roof. Do we want, as recreational beekeepers in South Australia, to allow that to happen? That's the question. And for those who do want to have it, put your hand up. Can't see anybody. I think it's common sense, isn't it? It's a no-brainer. Well, I need to go back with Simon later in the week and sit there and say, we've consulted our industry group, and they've unanimously said, and that's what you've just given us, the answer is no. And we're not going to budge.
But Peter, and then I think we'll be ignored anyway. So that's where it's up to individuals to reach out to your own local member politician. Basically, Claire Scrivens, who's doing the algal bloom thing, she needs to be on the radio with beekeepers arguing about this, and Medi in PIRSA. So if that's not done, we're going to get railroaded in the next week, and there's going to be queens coming in from Queensland. Okay, Barb.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, very briefly, Peter, what is the rationale behind it apart from commercial pressure?
Yep, commercial pressure.
Commercial pressure.
Yeah, from those who cannot see the future.
That's right, exactly. Whereas we're a bit closer to the ground and we think with our heads, not our feet.
Thank you very much for the update and the view. with regards to going back to government, are you in a position to say, no, do not lower the risk assessment and the risks, but here's some alternatives like the production of queens, how can you ramp it up? Where's the industry, South Australian industry, solution to this?
There isn't one, and it's a very good point. I've been banging on about this for 2 years, and the answer you get is, oh, we're not geared up to do it. Yes.
Can I just say something very, very briefly? In any letter that you, or email communication you have with a member of Parliament, finish it off by saying, I will be forced to consider my vote.
Yeah, and it's a sad thing, but we've got to get political on this.
Part of the secondary follow-up that the others probably didn't hear was regarding going back to the Minister government and offering that commercial solution, i.e. South Australian grown queens.
It's a good point.
But,
we can take that.
But couching it in that positive term,
yeah,
so that they have to think and consider the viable alternative and ramp it up.
Yeah. But they've left it a bit late.
But I'll add something as well. From my understanding, there's commercial beekeepers that are basically thinking if it permit or not, they plan on bringing in queens anyway, and potentially that could happen. And I guess they just want the permit system just to so they just get civil fines that they can afford to pay because they've got plenty of money, instead of criminal charges. So,
All right.
so
Thank you,
people
Peter.
need to agitate.
So I've just got...
Yeah. Yes.
Testing?
Adrian.
Testing? Yeah, okay. Peter, you've described a scenario where if they change the risk assessment, then they'll be bringing in queens and we'll have Varroa before we know it all throughout South Australia. Is there anything that those in favour of changing the risk assessment have published that said, if we don't do what they propose, what will the benefit be to South Australia? Because, you know, the only way that what they're describing makes sense is if we're going to have the apocalypse anyway. But I'm just wondering whether anybody's done any modelling to say, if we close the borders and don't allow queen inbreeding, then we delay the apocalypse by a year, 2 years, 3 years, or make the apocalypse worse. Has there been any modelling, or are they basically saying we can't delay the apocalypse, it's going to happen, it's a choice between now or 6 months or 12 months' time? Over.
I'll take this as the last question because Bob's got to get on with his meeting and I've got another meeting to go to. The argument they use is business continuity. In other words, we need the queens to keep beekeeping. Well, the funny thing is there's a hell of a big drought in South Australia and a lot of bees are going backwards all the time anyway. They're not addressing that properly with the industry. My argument when I fought on this issue that with Simon was, what about the business continuity of the beekeepers? Not the big pollinators and the almond growers and all the others. What about us? Oh, there was a stunned silence. Oh, we can think of that. Well, that's what we're here for. And really, we are getting jacked off with this pressure. And we want to be able to sit there and smile and say, we've consulted, you haven't, and our people say no. And that's what you've given us tonight. And that's what I needed to know, because Simon and I have got to go and fight for this, and it's not going to be over easily.
Thank you, son. Thank you, Peter. Pardon? Well, we certainly can take a motion. Yeah.
Of the importation of queens into South Australia. That's the motion. Happy with that?
Yeah. I'm happy to support that motion. Yeah. All those in favour? Yeah. And so it's the same. Thank you, folks. Thank you. One thing that I was remiss in doing at the beginning, are there any other apologies? I've got a list of apologies here from Meredith Abbott, Lisa Hams, Alan Higgins, Wendy Buttvilla, Jim Pugh, Michelle Renshaw, David Chin, Anna van den Broek and Adrian Eggle. Any other apologies? Pardon? Greenfield, thank you. Susan, would you like to come up to the microphone? Wherever you like to stand. Susan's going to give us a strictly beekeeping. Here we are. Have a hot.
Hello, everybody. Oh, gosh, I'm going to shout into it. It's very loud. Hello, everybody. And in case you hadn't noticed, the weather's going up, and we're definitely into spring by how the bees and everybody else is behaving at the moment. So just some really quick notes in relation to what to look out for in spring and what to be doing with your hives and everything else. So one thing as we go into summer, which I think from what I've heard on the radio about what summer will be like, how long and hot it will be, and how dry it will be, is still being determined. But if you have hives or if you're placing hives, don't forget about where you actually place them. So if it gets too hot, don't forget about trying to shade your hives. It's not like we need to put them out into the sun. If you've got some shade, or even some shade cloth if it gets too hot, what to do with bees. What's required under legislation anyway, make sure you have a good water source or several water sources for bees. I know should it actually rain, bees will drink from the ground or from a leaf, but if not, make sure you have, as required, a water source and put some landing pads, some corks or something, or even some sticks or something in the water to make sure bees don't drown, because they obviously can't swim. Think about where the hives are as well, their flight path, to make sure you're not annoying any neighbours or doing anything like that. Rotate your frames as well. Don't forget about as bees increase the amount of honey they've got in the hive, to start moving frames around, taking frames from the bottom boxes and putting them into top boxes. And make sure you change your comb over as well, whether that's plastic or whether that's wax foundation, just to make sure that as frames get used and the comb gets used after a while, the cell sizes get smaller, that you get residue in there. So make sure you're keeping things fresh and also helps reduce the risk of disease and everything else. Remember as well about wax moths around. If you leave hives or leave frames, not so much in boxes as such, and now that we're coming into spring with more bees, but if you take out frames and leave them for a while, there's a chance you'll get wax moth in there and can make a dreadful mess of things. If you are worried about that, you can always stick frames in the freezer for a couple of days. That certainly gets rid of wax moth or any anything that's in there. And also, make sure that you replace frames as you need to, and keep moving frames around. And if you've got a strong enough hive, you won't get wax moth or anything like that. What else was I going to say? Think about swarming. Don't forget, as your colony increases, make sure again you're moving frames, you're taking frames out, you're putting fresh frames in, adding boxes, etc., because they will start to swarm. I know with Varroa mite coming, the one thing comment I made earlier is that all those swarms that are in bird boxes and possum boxes and hollows will start to disappear, but we're not there yet, and we hope to not be there for a while. So you will have to still manage your hives and make sure that you're leaving space for your bee colony to escalate. I know there are swarms already out there, and people are collecting swarms, so just try and think about that. And also, if you're getting rid of frames and getting rid of your old brood or anything like that, to make sure what you do with it. Don't just put it in the green bin. I know that wax and foundation and that is green as such, but that's how you get disease as well. So you can burn old frames, you can bury old stuff, but think about how you dispose of things that you want to get rid of to try and keep disease down or anything like that. Does anybody have any questions or anything else they want to say about what else to do in spring or what's good to do? That's it. And there's obviously a few other diseases out there as well that are around, not just that annoying wax moth. So, yeah, don't forget about that.
Thank you, Susan. I have 3 quick announcements before we move into our... I hand the microphone over to Trish and she can introduce our panel of guests to answer the questions. We are going to have a workshop on Friday the 31st of October. Due to the good nature of Davide down here, our VDO, has given us the opportunity of a workshop, level 20, 11 Weymouth Street in the conference room on Friday the 31st of October from 1 p.m. on to about 4 p.m. on that day, and it's going to be talking about your own integrated pest management moving forward, as potentially Varroa might be getting closer. But it's the opportunity for you to prepare a management plan and start to think about what you are going to do for the safety or sake of your own bees. So there is a board up the front here where Trish has just moved to. At the end of the meeting, if people who are interested and want to be there on the 31st of October, 1 p.m, Weymouth Street, please put your details down there and we will confirm with Davide for an audience for that day. Pardon? Oh, sorry, number 11. Yeah. Level 20, number 11. Yep. Okay, and the next one for me is our field day. We had a successful one yesterday. 15th of November is the next field day at Clovelly Park. And be aware, it's a Saturday, not a Sunday. Our first 2 field days this year, or this season, have so far been on Sundays. Our next one will be reverting back to the Saturday the 15th of November for the field day. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about is the Unley Spring Fling, Sunday the 2nd of November. How's your team of helpers, Trish? All right.
So last year we went and it was lovely, but this year it's going to be even bigger. There's a new person taken over. It's at the Fullerton Centre and there's lots of stalls around the place, and we'll just have our lovely stall and sell our honey and advertise and talk about it.
How good were your sales of honey at Strathalbyn show?
So good. I was so excited. I took a lot of honey and Bob's creamed honey, of course, which is just always a favourite. So we went to the Strathalbyn show on the long weekend, on the Monday. $803 worth of honey we sold. And Mark Rose, who's one of our members here, he was there, and I thought, got a bit of competition here.
Well, that was $830 he didn't get.
That's very true. But there was so much interest, especially, it's always the creamed honey that goes first, because people my age can remember it on their toast when they were young. So it went really well, and a lot of interest in beekeeping, despite what's ahead of us. So even with the Varroa coming, I was really excited, the number of people that were really interested in bees and beekeeping. And if they couldn't have bees, we talked about their gardens. So it was, I had my 3 Harndorf girls who come when I have anything in the hills. They always come and help me out, and they're very keen and excited. So no, it went well, really well. So now Bob's got a jar up a bit more stuff for us to take to the spring fling. So, yeah. Spring fling. It's the 2nd. It should be the 2nd, not the 11th. I'm glad you noticed that, Santa. Thank you. 2nd of November. And when my volunteers come, we just talk to people about bees. There's so much interest in bees. We sell our honey. Just talk to people. It's really rather nice. So if anyone's interested in coming along, and I've got 2 volunteers, but I could probably do with a couple more if anyone would like to come along on the 2nd of November. Thank you, Bob. You coming down? All right. Well, I would love to invite my guests. Now, one of my guests pulled out an hour before the meeting, and I thought, oh, that's a bit harsh on me. But anyway, we can do it. We could do it. Could I invite Matt up, please, onto the stage? Davide up onto the stage. And Aphrodite onto the stage. Lovely, thank you. Rose between the thorns. I thought Susan might like to come up again too, but she's just taken off out the door. So we'll see. She might like to come up when she comes back in to fill Phil's space. So thank you very much for being on our... Oh, Paul! Paul, where are you? Oh, sorry, Paul. I didn't really forget you. Come on, up you come. He was waiting to be asked to come up. And here he comes. All right, Paul. So these wonderful people have offered to answer questions tonight. Just any questions. Quite a few are going to be directed at Davide for obvious reasons, our VDO. Matt, maybe you could just start and tell everyone a little bit about your business and yourself.
Thank you. Yes, Matt Thomas from Inglewood Bees. I started my bee journey in 1996 when I bought 40 acres up in Inglewood. I did have a little hiatus because 1996 was pre-Google, and I was learning by getting stung, and my getting stung didn't go very well. So I then I was doing it probably 6 months, and then I sort of turned the bees off, neglected them for probably 5 to 10 years, and living that 5 to 10 years allergic to bees. So going into hospital, are you allergic to anything? Yes, I'm allergic to bees. And it wasn't until, actually I got back into bees about 15 years ago, but it wasn't until someone had an anaphylactic shock and flatlined, i.e. they're dead, and they got brought back, but someone I do bees with basically pointed out to me that I wasn't allergic and I was just soft. So yes, I decided to toughen up and getting better at it. But our business, as we were moving along with bees, we sort of got a bit bigger and we're buying a lot of stock, and so coming from a bit of a retail background, we've decided to set up an online business, Inglewood Bees. Our main focus is breeding bees. It sounds like there's a few people out there wanting queens, but queens are on limited supply at the moment. And with a focus on breeding bees, but also basic beekeeping equipment. So that's Inglewood Bees. Thank you.
Okay, so some of you have already heard my story, but in basic terms, I got into beekeeping because my father needed an apprentice, and we all know what that means. So after free labour, absolutely. So after 30 years of being his free labour and selling the honey at work, because that was a lot easier for him, I decided I needed to do more because I kept on asking questions and couldn't get enough answers. So I joined the Bee Society back in 2019, Beekeeper Society, and that obviously continued my interest. Started off with one hive, as we all do, ended up with 2 or 3, and before I knew it, I was helping other people have their own hives. So that amounted to, I think I got up to 15 hives before I decided that I needed to think seriously about this. So the next decision was to retire from government employment. I'm technically not retired at all, clearly. And I studied the Certificate 3 in beekeeping and then the Certificate 4 in training and assessment, and then continued my journey. Obviously, I kept on supporting the Beekeeper Society here, and I now have my own business too, Aphrodite's Harvest. It made sense to use my name, being so unique, and I have an online presence, and I offer obviously beekeeping services. I offer training at home as well, and mentoring and all of those things. So yes, here I am.
There you go. There you go. Well, Aphrodite was also a Varroa trainer for the national program. So anyway, so my name is Davide. I'm a Varroa development officer full-time. We are a team of 3, Josh, Aaron, and myself. So now I've been working as a video for about a year already. So I have been a beekeeper for about 6 years, 4 of which semi-commercial, about 100, 120 hives. Just, a little work on the weekend because I don't like apparently relaxing. I don't know how to. So anyway, and then I decided to take on board the video role. I think it's a very important role, and it puts me in contact with all beekeepers, commercials, recreationals, and we have, even at a national level, I have been able to see the industry as a whole nationwide, and it's been amazing to see what other states are doing and where they're at, especially when it comes to Varroa, but not only Varroa, all sorts of pests and disease and beekeeping techniques. It's quite fascinating, so I'm really enjoying it. That said, it's not a particularly nice job to deal with when you get to see colony collapse because of Varroa, and you can see on people's faces it does have serious implication. It takes its toll mentally speaking. So yeah, that's pretty much me at this stage.
I think this is the one that works. Yeah, I'm a long-time beekeeper. I started probably more than 50 years ago, which indicates how old I am now. I don't see many faces that I saw here 40 or 50 years ago. But when I first came to South Australia, I was lucky to get, at that time, 2 leaseholds, one at my Ponga Reservoir and one at Millbrook. So I was beekeeping well before Ash Wednesday of 1983, I think it was February, because I made a big strategic error. When I knew Ash Wednesday was coming, I moved all my hives to Millbrook, and we know what happens there. Couldn't go back for 2 weeks after, and the ground was still smouldering from tree roots burning. So the whole 100 hives went, and I also, I had from Dad on and Sons in America, we have lots of beekeepers over there, and they're a company that were going for 150 years now. So I had artificial insemination gear, and so used to breed my own queen bees, but I lost heart after the Ash Wednesday bushfire, and I sold everything. I gave my artificial insemination gear, or sold it to a guy in Western Australia. The other thing I've learned over the years is you don't go into big open spaces when there's a thunderstorm. I was down with Noel Lewis once, commercial beekeeper. We drove up to the gate to go into this big open area where we had 70 or 80 hives. And as I was looking, as I got down from the truck to open the gate, there was an M-lock standing up on the top of the hive. The M-lock being what you lock the hive down. It was standing up. As I was looking at, bang, big bolt of lightning hit it, completely disintegrated the hive. And I went back to the truck and said to Noel, I'm not going in there. And he said, you are, get back in. So I opened the gate and we did go in, but you could smell the air. It was so different because of the burning. So my best advice to anyone is never go into a big open space when there's a thunderstorm. Another thing too, if you ask an opinion of 10 beekeepers, you'll get 10 answers. And when you read even books, there's lots of answers that I would never give anyone. For example, if you can bear with me for just a few seconds, how is this for advice? The honey goes into 5-gallon buckets and the supers go out the door to the backyard to be robbed out. What does that mean? We all know about American foul breed, so do not do. That's about my little story for the moment. I know, look, I was on the committee of the Beekeepers Society many years ago. I was president 2010-12, and I believe that there's difficulty getting enough committee members now. Well, for our society to survive, it needs committee members. So the big request is, please step forward. Obviously, for the society to go well into the future, we need lots of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, well, there's some wonderful questions here that you've popped into the box on the way. We might just start with, I think this is really important. Now, where was it? Really important. Oh, we'll start with this one. What do each of you use, wax foundation or plastic foundation, and why?
I sat in the wrong chair, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
So historically I've used both. I sell both, so there's did someone say a conflict of interest? So use both, sell both. My out and out preference is wax. I do like plastic. There was mention before about wax moth. I've occasionally slipped up and been smashed by wax moth. The selling point on a plastic frame is that you buy a $4 or $5 plastic frame, spend all that work getting it drawn out, and it gets hit by wax moth. You clean it all off, you've still got a $4 to $5 frame. You spend $8 on a fully assembled waxed and wired frame, or you do all that work yourself, and then get all the bees to do all that really important work drawing out that frame, and it gets smashed by wax moth. You've now got a $1 frame. So my preference is wax, but you've just got to treat it like gold.
So I use wax foundation in the brood box and plastic in the honey super, and yes, for all those reasons. And that way you mix it up, because obviously when you're spinning, the plastic foundation won't blow out. So yeah, that's my justification.
I'm the same. I like wooden frame with plastic foundations. It's easier to catch when you have small hive beetles running around. You can just squish them through the foundation rather than just piercing your frame. That said, also when I was working commercially, I mean, I liked the fact that I was spinning pretty hard. Wax wasn't going to fly everywhere into the extractor. So everyone has pros and cons, I guess. And price point, yes. I mean, you can clean them up pretty easily and off you go.
Well, when I take a swarm, it's au naturel, because you cut out the natural slabs of wax and you put them into an open frame and put rubber bands around them. So you're committed to that. But otherwise, I use plastic, and I have now the synthetic plastic ones that are drone size, because you want to sort of use that, one or two in each of my boxes, my supers, or my brood boxes rather, so that it attracts the drones, because that's where Varroa is mainly going to go. So that's it. Yeah.
So Paul, I also have purchased wax foundation made for drones. So both are available, and yes, I do have the plastic green frames for the drones, as well as the wax foundation, so I can do both.
Thank you, everyone. Wonderful. Next one. I've got another. Yeah, that's working. Now, I don't know who will, probably Davide, this one might be for you. Has any extra funding been secured for VDOs to continue?
I hope so. No. So there have been requests, and the thing is we haven't seen any. So until I see a piece of paper in front of me, the answer is no. But I know there have been a great deal of talks, and a lot of beekeepers at commercial level, they've sent quite a few emails, to the minister and to the execs of BSSA asking for more fundings. But at this stage, the answer is no. We'll see what happens in a few weeks' time. Things changes all the time. But
Yes,
until February, the end
until
of February, that's when our contract expires as videos. We do understand the timing is horrible because it seems like that's when we're going to get Varroa. Well, I mean, when we get Varroa, we might change. I know we have a BBO coming on board very soon. The role has been advertised until I think the application closes on the 22nd of this month of October, and they are planning to get it started as soon as possible. So, but at this stage for videos, we can't say, so we don't have anything in our hands.
David, are you able to explain, there's a lot of BBO, the Bee Biosecurity Officer, what will the job of the Bee Biosecurity Officer be?
So the Bee Biosecurity Officer is still going to be education, but not specific to Varroa. So it's everything. So, American fowl brood, it's going to spend a lot of time with the commercial beekeepers, that's for sure. But again, it's available to everyone who has concerns about pest and disease, and I know there will be different level of KPIs in terms of level of engagements and how these engagements are going to be performed, and also who is going to be reporting to. So, yeah. Well, there is going to be a great level of education on that as well, but the description is on the PERSA website. If you're looking for more details, and whoever comes up, we shall see. Yep.
Anyone want to be a BBO?
Everyone wants to be a BBO. Application still open. You apply for that. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, good man.
There you go.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well done. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Yes, for you. Yeah, everything crossed. Very good. Okay, next one. The neighbour has a swarm I am hoping to collect but have no such experience. Please advise. Yeah.
So that is as in how to catch the swarm.
How to catch the swarm.
Okay.
Pete, where's Pete? Pete, is that what you're asking?
Yep.
Correct. Thank you.
It is a great question because this year, it's just quite bizarre. 2 years ago, we had the potentially second best honey flow on record, followed by the worst season on record, massive losses. And then this year, I haven't seen so many swarms ever before. The number of swarms and the size of them coming through is just mind-blowing. So there's lots of swarms out there. Okay, where was the... Oh, it doesn't really matter where it was. Yeah.
The location?
If it's high, I leave them there. Did you say in a wall? Okay, so in a wall, unfortunately pest control. In a roof space generally, I've done a few roof spaces. One look, if you can't get to the colony, it's pest control. I find it very frustrating on bookface when I see these. There's a swarm here hanging in a bush, rose bush, 2 feet off the ground. Oh, don't worry, let them go. They'll move on within a day or two. It is just so frustrating. Spray them with water, they'll move on. They'll move on into someone's garden wall, where it'll then cost $200 to $250 for someone to actually get them exterminated. So the world out there, but the problem is, the world out there needs to be educated that if there is an easy swarm, a beekeeper needs to be called to pick it up so that it doesn't end up in a wall and costing someone $250 to exterminate it. But if we just quickly go through the process of picking up a swarm for those who want to do it, it is super easy. But what you do need is spare kit. When you get into beekeeping, you want a hive. Always should have 2 hives, not 1 hive. But anyway, you go and get your 1 box or your 2 boxes because that's what you need at the time. you actually need spare frames, you need spare boxes, because when all of a sudden you go in and do an inspection and everything's packed out, you need the kit then. You don't need the kit 3 days' time when you go up to Inglewood Bees to pick up a box of frames. You need them there and then, because in 3 days' time when you do get the frames and you get back there, they've either swarmed or the whole situation is worse. So you need spare kit. Same thing with swarms. If you haven't got spare kit, you're going to try and catch it in a cardboard box or not ideal ways. So if you've got a spare box, you go out, you sit the box next to where the swarm is. There's lots of different ways. If it's actually on a flexible branch, you can literally put the box under there, sharp jab of the branch, the whole swarm just drops in. They're generally quite placid, drop some frames on top, put a lid on. I always, with my swarm pickups, leave them there and go back at night and pick them up. Don't leave anyone behind. If you're just going in there, getting most of them and leaving, you are actually leaving the homeowner a little bit of a problem, because you're going to end up with a fist or two fistful of bees that have been flying around still there. But they will generally go back to the hive they came from, but will they or won't they? The more difficult ones, where they're clinging to a tree trunk or a more advanced bush, I tend to get the comb and sort of rest it in there and get bees to transfer across onto the comb, put a comb over here, put a comb over there, and then slowly get most of them across. It becomes a numbers game. Have a bee clip in your pocket ready to go, because if you see the queen, you need to clip her there and then, not, oh, where's my clip? You look back, she's gone. Because with getting swarms, once you've got the queen, you've got it. If you play the numbers game and try and get them all in the box, and if you get the queen, they will generally all go in. But one of the things with collecting swarms is there is no promises. You get them all in the box, you think you've got them all, and you may have the queen. You take them home, you sit them on a great location, you come out the next day, they're gone. 90% of the time they will stay there, but I've had quite a few that just decide they don't like all that beautiful comb that I gave them, and they'll abscond straight away. The other quick trick is, especially when you've got one last little thing. It's a classic trick. When they're on a post or a tree trunk or any kind of structure that you're trying to get them off, there's pheromones on that trunk. So okay, do you want me to pass it back to you? Okay, I'm going to hand it over and I'll come back if it's not covered.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can't have him answering all the questions. So if you're a beekeeper already and you have a hive and you have brood, another trick is to have a frame of brood in that nuke or box that you're going to put the rest of the swarm into. It will help keep the bees there and keep them interested. Or add it later, yeah, so that can help. Obviously, putting in drawn comb in the box that you're going to collect the bees in also helps, rather than just a flat frame of wax, because obviously, if you've got stickies, they're going to be much happier in something that's much more established. You were talking about the branches, the pheromones. So you either, if you can, cut that off so that they don't go back to it, or if you can't do that, then spray. I use things like eucalyptus oil sprays to remove the scent of the queen, because that's what's bringing them back to that spot. Depending on how long they've sat on there, if it's, she will leave a scent. And if they've also built any comb, because they can do that pretty quickly too, all that stuff means that they will keep coming back there. So if you can cut it off and remove it and take it with you, great. If you can't, then what other things do you spray with?
So it might be controversial, but I use Aerogard. Aerogard is a repellent, not a insect killer. So don't just grab any insect spray. It must be Aerogard that is a repellent, or something that states that it's a repellent, and not the odourless one, because it's the really strong odour of Aerogard, the blue can, that actually gets rid of them. And I do little dash sprays. So little dash spray, they spread out, and little dash sprays, sweep them all off and spray it when they're not there, and they do not like landing back on it. You just got to get them in the air and elevate the box up as close as you can to where they were actually coming and landing, and they will hone in on the box that you've got them in. You know when you're very close is when the bees are all lining up on the edge of the box or the entrance with their butts up in the air, fuzzing their wings, basically saying the queen's in here. So once you get to that stage, you're home and hosed.
And of course, smoking the branches while you're collecting them is also another way to cover the pheromone scent as well.
Well, depending where the swarm is, if I can't reach it, sometimes I use a pheromone spray. So that works pretty well in combination with stickies. Put a couple of stickies in there, a couple of sprays, and that usually lures them in. Well, not usually, but a lot of the times, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I'm talking about actual pheromones.
Where do you get that from?
I don't know, the beekeeping supplies, has it? Vanessa, they sell it. It's like a swarm catching or swarm lure attractant. So, yeah, well, no, it's not just lemongrass salt. You can use lemongrass salt, that's fine, but that is actually resembles the queen pheromone rather per se than just the home pheromone. But yeah.
You can actually make your own pheromone. There's recipes around. But just taking it a bit further, I suppose, I mean, it's just about all been said, but I was called to a swarm once at Pake Town in the Adelaide Hills, and when I got there was a swarm that must have been about 10 years old. It was in the wall of a house. Well, actually, the guy who owned the place, he'd developed lots of buildings, and this particular building had a swimming pool in it, a gym, an office, but the wall was timber. And he said, they're in the wall. So I said, well, I'm going to have to take some of the wall off. And he said, that's fine. So I took a small bit off, and I sort of realised it went on and on. And in the end, I had to take the whole wall of the end off. It was the most, it was huge, and I had boxes everywhere. Not only that, when you go to get a swarm, they're usually docile. It's not much of a problem. You know, the easy ones, as mentioned, are the ones just hanging on a branch. You cut the branch and put them in. But if you go to an established one, they're very vicious. And people got interested. They came to look. And what happens, ladies get too close, they've got lots of hair, and they start waving their hands, and the bees get into their hair, and they sting them, which is not very good. So that was the worst one I ever had. And as mentioned, you leave the boxes overnight so the bees can settle in, and you come back the next day. So a bit of a variation.
Oh, great answers. Thank you.
Yeah, there, Trish. Can I just come in?
Certainly.
So, just need to push back a little on what Matt said there. You can do trap outs. So, so if they are inside of the wall, I've learned off of Leon has taught me some good tricks on doing traps, which is like you build like a funnel. It does take 3, 4, 5 weeks though, and the bees go out and they can't work out how to get back in again. But there's a lot of different techniques for it. So maybe I can give you some tips afterwards. Yep. And yeah, I use Bushmans instead of so Aeroguard and Bushmans. The main thing is the 40% DEET heavy duty. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I reply to all the emails from the public, and I'm getting 5 swarms a day. Yes, and there've been a few walls, chimneys, places, and I think, oh, I feel a bit sick when I.
Yeah. And just on Simon's point, I should clarify that was probably my tiredness speaking there. I've done chimneys. I've done about 3 chimneys. I've done 3 wine barrels. I've done a wall where we've ripped the whole gyp rock out and vacuumed them out. Just slowly vacuuming them out. You've got to make your own box up, but.
And I guess that the main thing is on the swarms, on the bees.org.au swarms, if you look for there are 2 different categories. You get the I think it's the main or easy, and then there's people that are willing to do the difficult ones, which you do, so that there's some people that have their names. So me and
it's written beside their names. Yes, so it's really good. So when I go and people say I've got bees in the wall, and I write back and say, where are you? You know, it's back and forward, probably by which stage they've all gone. But Simon has now made the swarm list so much easier. He's put a distance from where the people live. So once they give me the suburb that they live in, I can just go straight to the swarm list and give them the phone numbers to ring. So it's working really well, really well.
Just sorry, one really quick preventative strategy on that it was, that especially with this time of year, if you see bees sniffing around your house, looking, and especially if you know the vents up in the eaves, or you know if you had bees go into your house last year, you're going to have bees go into the house this year. They'll keep coming back and coming back to the same locations. So again, the DEET, the Aerogard, wherever they're sniffing, go and spray. If you can mesh it, great, but otherwise just go around and spray all the locations to keep them on the move, or whack a bait box out on the wall. So get what you're going to catch the swarm in, sit it out on the wall, spray all the holes, and put a bait box there, and they move in. And so after this meeting, I'm going and picking up the 4th bait box swarm from the same location on the way home. Every week I'm picking one up at the moment.
Golly, I admire my swarm collectors. They are wonderful people. They do a lot of swarm collecting their own time, and after work often a lot of the time too. So another question was, what should I be doing to prevent my hive from swarming this year? But I think Susan's answered that question, don't you, with what she told us before? Anything else you want to add to prevent them from swarming?
There's a very detailed way of doing it, and really, because of the time consumed, you'd only need a few hives to do it, but I don't think it's worth discussing it here because it's a long process. You have to keep cutting out, the cells and so forth. So splitting hives is one way. You split hives so that it gets through the difficult part of the season, then you unite them again later on. The most thorough way, and you'd have to read a book on it, it's too detailed to explain here, about how you keep cutting out every 7 to 9 days as the season goes on. I'll leave it for the others to give their ideas on that one.
I'm a big fan of gesso splitting. Walkaway splits, that does the job. It's quick and easy, but I'm very tight with time, so I like to get straight to the point and do what needs to be done pretty quickly.
Again, just keep an eye. Obviously, at this time of the year, make sure they've got the room and the resources they need, so they don't have to go. And again, if you've marking your queens, a lot of people don't seem to do it, but marking your queens is actually quite important because then you at least know how if you know how old your queen is, you at least are a little bit more prepared for knowing when she's going to go. Because a queen will be fertile and productive for up to 5 years, but, not to the day, as it were. So if you've got a young queen, you can be a little bit more confident. If you've got an older queen, you need to be obviously doing all sorts of things and keeping an eye on your hive. What's the brood pattern looking like? Is it solid? Is it starting to get a bit patchy? Are there more drones than there should be? There are lots of signs leading up to it, and you've usually got up to a month's notice. If you're keeping an eye on your hive more regularly, and potentially every 2 weeks opening your hive, you can see what's about to happen as well. So there, again, like Paul said, there's a lot of information to go into, but there are things that you can do in managing your hive to avoid swarms.
Agreed. If once you see the hive creating queen cells, so as in you see the royal jelly and the larvae in there, once that's started, they're going to swarm. So some kind of split, walkaway split, however you want to do it, you're better off just doing it. The preventative action, the one that I predominantly use, is a strategy we call 3, 5 and 7, which means going through your brood box and finding resources to take out, any kind of honey and pollen that you can frames that haven't got brood on it. Ideally find 3 frames, remove them and put an empty undrawn frame in slot 3, 5 and 7. So it basically gives the hive a sense of space. If you are running a single brood box, your hive management is significantly higher than the person running a double brood box. If you're running a double brood box, I do the same thing on the second box, 3, 5 and 7. So go through, take enough frames out, put empty frames in 3, 5 and 7, the same 3, 5 and 7, so the bees come in, have a sense of space in that slot 3, 5 and 7. Move frames that are empty, even if you're not 3, 5 and 7ing, move frames that are on the outside that are empty, move that space into the inside. That'll buy you a little bit of time, but 3, 5 and 7 will buy you the most time. You can run that. You can run, well, if you're going to have an 8-frame box, do 2, just go back 1, but it ends up the same because 7 becomes 2 from the other end. The frames that you take out, put above the queen excluder, even if there's brood in it, they'll hatch out. I've had a double 8 box with 14 frames of brood on it. There were only 2 frames that we could take out that were chock-a-block full of pollen and honey. That was in a flow hive, so we basically took flow canisters out, took brood frames out as well and put them up the top so that they could hatch out to try and get 6 empty frames in there, and that was just, fighting the space.
On that note, once we get Varroa, you won't be allowed to move frames from the brood box onto the super, because when you do treatments, organic, synthetics, doesn't matter, the wax will absorb, and the honey as well will absorb a certain active ingredients, and that active ingredient has an MRL, which is a maximum residual level of which you're allowed to sell or even consume honey. So you have to be very, very careful. So you will be able to move frames from the super to the brood, but once they are on the outer layer, rotation is very important when it comes to Varroa management. You have to throw away those frames. So now it's great, but things are going to be changing pretty soon, I would say.
Just one thing about swarming, it's all caused by the age of the queen in actual fact. The older the queen is, the more likely is that you'll get a swarm. And what you can do to keep track of things, you cut the left wings of the queen in an odd year, and you paint her one of 5 colours so you know what year she was born. And so in an even year, you cut the wings on the right side, and so you've got 5 colours that you put on the queen. So it's a good way of keeping track of things.
Thank you. Golly, I wish we had all night. This is really interesting. Davide, what do you expect to find at the end of the 100-day period of quarantine if Varroa is present?
Well, I hope not to find it, but if it's there, I definitely hope to find it. So, look, it's hard to say. So at this stage, I'm very confident from the information that we have and what we have been doing so far. I'm very confident that we dodged the bullet there. And we did a whole level of surveillance. So it was supposed to be like a 2 weeks kind of trip. Ended up being 12 weeks. Some weekends as well. And on top of that, now we are doing a lot of backtracing since we found the first detection. And since then, with all the backtracings, and I'm personally working with that South Australian commercial beekeeper that was nearby, and we are on day 60 now, and we still have found nothing. So I'm very confident that, even we put 35 catch boxes and 10 sentinel hives around the area, I'm confident we won't find anything. So there is a lot happening on the background, and there is someone up in the Waikerie area pretty much every day of the week. So, I think we'll find nothing. But regardless, we bought ourselves some time, but Varroa is still coming. So my best suggestion will be to assume that Varroa is here and start, if you are not familiar with what Varroa is, life cycle, symptoms, surveillance, monitoring techniques, and especially camps and treatment plans, you really need to get on top of that. And monitoring at this stage, well, actually surveillance is key, because the earlier we find it in South Australian hives, the earlier we can actually slow down the spread.
I'm going to be number 1 I've done about 4 courses, but I'm going to be number 1 on this integrated pest management one.
So on this one, and we assume some level of basic knowledge, and that basic knowledge can be found on varroa.org.au. There are training modules. There is a half-an-hour one, which is very, very easy, very quick, that gives you bit of an overview of what Varroa is, and then there is a more comprehensive one, which is 9 modules, and I think it's 3.5 hours, so it's quite substantial. But again, it's bite-sized chunks. And the thing is, you don't want to do it all at once. You need to do one module and reflect on it and metabolize and absorb that information.
Okay, thank you, Davide. And just going on from there,
Yeah.
PIRSA has announced the responsible chemical use of non-synthetic apiboxyl solution, apibioxyl powder, ApiGuard Formic Pro. Where can it be obtained from and who is selling it?
Alrighty, so I think the question refers to the latest biosecurity notice from the 10th. So that responsible use is for all chemicals. So in a few words, now you are not allowed at this stage to buy chems and even our commercial, our shops, beekeeping shops, I don't think they have anything in stock, even if they requested it as of yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when it comes especially to apibioxyl, that is an emergency permit, and so we won't have it until we actually find Varroa in South Australia. So it's a bit of a grey area. We are going to be able to get chems, but not at this stage. And regardless, why would you want them at this stage? You don't need them until you have Varroa and you know that you are above threshold. And the chems are, again, the last thing that you want to be using. So as a recreational beekeeper myself as well now, I would want to focus as much as possible on mechanical controls. And Paul was talking about the drone comb, right? So those green frames with the wider cells. So drone trapping is a very effective mechanical control. You can do it multiple times a year and can remove up to 47% of the mite population. Plus, with your vented bottom bases, that's an additional up to 20%. So there are mechanical ways that you can effectively use to reduce the mite count. So don't panic and buy chems, especially because they are expensive and they have a shelf life, and you won't need them straight away. So yeah, of course. And then there is a whole heaps of, you need to understand the mode of action, chemical resistance, and your personal health, because at the end of the day, even organic compounds, organic treatments are pretty nasty. Does that answer the question?
You just got to keep it away, okay?
Well, as much as possible, but sometimes, and especially at the beginning with the reinfestation phase, you will need to use some level of chemicals if you want to have these afterwards. But that's something that we can discuss, I guess, later on, and we will discuss that anyway at
the workshop.
At this workshop, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Ooh, we've got such wonderful answers. Why would bees desert a hive, leaving plenty of food behind?
You just don't like the beekeeper, in my opinion.
On one occasion when I had bees on Kangaroo Island, there were lots of ants, and unfortunately I didn't have enough ant stands, and bees would have abscond because of the ants. And this is a bit by the by, but I was looking out the window again today, and lots of the bees were disappearing because of wattlebirds. How many people have seen wattlebirds taking their bees? It's breeding season, so the birds need to feed their young. And it astounds me how they can catch them on the wing. They just flip in, grab them, and off they go. They don't get stung. It's amazing. Yeah.
And of course, depending again, how old is your queen? Queens, that's... if you're not marking your queens, if you don't know how old they are, that's another factor that you really do need to be much more aware of. So, yeah, it's observation. If you observe your hive and are regularly inspecting it and recording what you inspect and what you see, you can start to understand what's happening inside your hive and start to preempt and understand what are going to be the triggers for swarms.
And I think that was, so abscondment is when they leave, generally ants is probably the only one that they normally go from. Although last year was a dry year, bad ants year, but for some reason abscondment rates were way up last year as well, and in situations where the ants weren't really necessarily the issue. So whether or not it was a nectar flow issue, and they detected that the nectar flow wasn't good, and if they don't move, they weren't going to survive. Don't know, but there was a bit going on last year without reason.
Yes, yes. We've got a few more. Can I, one more question and then we'll do the raffle? Is that all right? Right on 9 o'clock. How has the decision of what to use to treat Varroa mite been made? Yeah, good one.
That's why we have a workshop for that. So, I mean, when it comes to treatment, it's a lot of the answers. Actually, the answer to all of the question is it depends, and that's so frustrating, right? So, let's say that tomorrow I go to my apiary and I found one mite. All right. So, things that I have to consider is how many ferals do I have in the area? So I can just kind of have an idea of the level of reinfestation that I'm going to have. What? Leave me alone. Then also, are my bees strong enough? Do I have good numbers? Do I have a lot of food? That they are pretty healthy? Is there presence of any other pest and disease? Level of infestation determines what treatment you're going to be using. If I only have one mite, I'm not going to chuck strips straight away. I'm going to control maybe mechanically, so I'll do a drone trapping. I will start uncapping drones to understand if I have more than what I actually think I have. So there are so many factors that you need to consider, and it can be a little overwhelming and exhausting. So we will discuss this on the workshop. So if you are interested on a comprehensive answer, please come along. Otherwise, we're going to be here for a couple more hours. No, we won't? Yeah. Look, from what I've seen, it's not looking great. So,
We're not over. The drought isn't completely over. Certainly not for the country areas. And until we address that,
I think we need to start considering a multi-year drought, and that's the reality of things. The beekeeping is becoming tougher. It's getting more and more complicated to manage hives, not only from a pest and disease perspective, but also from a resources perspective. It's very hard. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great season. Hopefully better than last year, but the general feeling it's not looking great.
Barbara, could we just have the raffle tickets, please? Well, we didn't get through all our questions. Look at all the questions here, but I want to thank these wonderful people. I think we do need to do this more often, because I would have liked to have given you the opportunity also to have questions from the floor, but we've just run out of time. And
If you want to pass me the remaining question that concerns Varroa, I can send you a reply with the customer.
okay, we'll do that then. We'll do that. All right, so we've got, with spring coming on, we just thought, we've got other things, but we thought we might just have our beautiful spring flowers today. So let's, maybe Matt, could you pull out the first one, please? We sort of need... We've got Julie. Oh, here she comes. Julie. Orange X86. And Aphrodite, thank you. We've got Susan Loney. You got the second one. You take whichever one you like. They were all covered in bees when we were looking. You're welcome. Congratulations. Oh, and you've got this as well, Julie. This comes from Vanessa. Yes. Susan. And Gary. You can always squeeze another plant in. That goes together. No, that goes together. They go together. They go together. Yes, yes. That's Gary P. Oh, look, I know that's Gary P. And Gary, that's from Vanessa. That's a $10. off there. All right. Thank you so much, Matt, Aphrodite, Davide, and Paul. And if you would like to come to the Integrated Pest Management Workshop in Weymouth Street, please pop your name down here, and then we will contact you closer to time. Thank you. If you could just stack your chairs in 6 over to the left there or right, depending where you are. So do stay and have a cup of tea and some more supper if you would like. Oh,